Okay.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the OSR Tabletop live stream, even though this is recorded, with DM Bluddworth. And today I'm joined by Victor Dorso, the organizer of DaveCon. And if you've been following the various channels revolving around the OSR on YouTube, or possibly some Twitter, some Twitter feeds that you might also share those in common with, you'll know that there's been quite a bit of controversy that has been erroneously drummed up around DaveCon, and that's why I'm bringing Victor on today so that he can talk a little bit about it as well. But prior to us going straight to Victor, let me just make a real quick announcement that if you are aware of this individual or his channels, whether they be on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter, here is just a general statement. Do not go to this person's channel prompted by watching this video. Do not go there for the purpose of harassing or otherwise attacking him or threatening him or anything. Just try to avoid his channel as much as you possibly can, and if he is visiting your channel for whatever reason, just be wary that he is not a very in good faith player to have involved in your space as well. So without further ado, I'm going to get right back to Victor and let him talk to the issue at hand. So once again, welcome, Victor, and the floor is all yours.
Thank you for having me again. I really didn't expect this much attention devoted to this, but I'm willing to talk. So whatever you want to ask me, go ahead.
All right. So, I mean, to your knowledge, when was like the first point that you became aware that a boycott DaveCon and defamation of both your convention and possibly even yourself was being spread on YouTube, on Twitter, and possibly other social networks as well?
Okay, about 4 or 5 months ago, this individual decided to drop DaveCon after he went and read the DaveCon website and saw that Ernie Gygax was a featured guest. Now, let me explain something to you. Due diligence is something everybody does. And you can only do due diligence to a certain degree. When you're vetting a guest to come to you and do stuff, you do not get into their private lives whatsoever, and you try not to, because you don't know what you're going to uncover or whatever. And doing that is also cost prohibitive for a convention. But anyways, the individual we're talking about used statements by Ernie Gygax to basically call for a boycott of DaveCon, yet he would not attack any other con that Ernie Gygax is associated with or had been to. And he used his justification as for not talking about Gary Con. He said to me in a conversation, it's public, somebody could find it, I don't know where it is, or I have it saved somewhere, that attacking Gary Con was problematic. Attacking any other con was problematic, that I was the focus of his attention, and that he didn't have any other time to devote to attacking any other cons, which, as you well know, brought out some vicious and libelous name calling.
Mm-hmm.
And because I was associated with Ernie Gygax, who is associated with the new TSR and its founder and the people who that the founder of new TSR had hired to write the Star Frontiers next generation, new Genesis. I don't remember what the exact terminology of that is. I think it's the new Genesis role-playing game. And
Correct.
I have zero, absolute zero money, interest, anything with that new TSR. But because it was guilt by association, because Ernie Gygax has an association with those folks, and I was labeled into the same umbrella.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, and I actually witnessed some of that as well, and it was like it was an argument that this individual made that by not condemning Ernie Gygax Jr., you're condoning anything that had come out of anything that had come out of new TSR and all the controversies that they had grown. I mean, the same thing even went with an icon or a little image of Ernie Gygax Jr. supports this product, even though the product has nothing to do with the fiasco that new TSR generated on its own with Star Frontiers New Genesis and the back and forth whether this was actually content or not. I think most of us pretty much concede that was just terrible content to try to draft in there and but the point is that should not, as you're putting it, make someone that's even loosely associated with that to be persona non grata and to be removed from anything or removed from the ability to make a living for themselves, let alone just maintain a social presence in the hobby that they might have been involved with for 50, 60 years.
And here's another thing. The reason I originally invited Ernie Gygax is he's one of the last remaining people on this planet that was actually at the first playing of Blackmore at Gary Gygax's house. He was one of those players that was there. So his presence was, at that game was a historical part of role-playing games. I mean, very historical. It's underrated, but it is a historical place inside the, inside the OSR and RPGs, everything. That it was a pivotal moment in time, and that's why he was invited to. Right.
And it's understandable. I mean, the point is that the one thing where they say, well, he should be excluded from all cons. I'm sure that he probably is from a number.
Hold on a second. Somehow I'm hold on a second. I need to.
Okay. Do you hear me?
I can hear you. I know I can. Hold on a second here. I got to figure out what's going on here. I might have to switch.
Okay.
Or let me see here.
I'm going to try to turn back on my microphone.
I can hear you fine.
All right. Can you hear me now?
I hear you fine.
All right. There's an issue on my end. Hold on. Let me see if I can. I can cure this really quick.
Mm-hmm.
The phone, when it rang,
Oh, yeah, it interferes.
It turned off my, hold on, it's turning on. Come on. This is technology, folks. This is just how it happens sometimes. All right, hold on. Let me see if I can't. Can you hear me now?
I hear you crystal clear.
All right, we're gonna have this with
the
I hear you even better now.
All right, there we go. There we go. It's finally hooked up. Bluetooth finally decided to work. All right, let me get back to
hiccups every once in a while. All right, so we'll move forward then. So when was the first time that you became aware that the person in question approached one of your vendors, more than one of your vendors?
It was about a month ago that he had started pestering my vendors, and that really set me off. I mean, I knew. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not a lawyer or anything else, but my dad was a politician, and inside our home when I was growing up, we had all the law books, and I do know how to read a law book, and I knew what this person was doing was illegal, and it was or you know what I'm saying. It was I knew where my rights were at. Let's just put it that way. So, and that's what started the ball rolling. And then last week he had made a statement to on an OSR board, and then immediately backtracked on that, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back. Basically, all that interference there broke the camel's back, which prompted my actions. So, you know,
and I had actually read some of those things. I actually listened to, you know, one of his videos when he came out, and he said, you know, even, and it was after you had either disinvited Ernie Gary Gygax, or, you know, or whatever it was. And he said, well, yeah, I acknowledge that Ernie is no longer listed as a special guest, but I'm still going to call for a boycott of DaveCon. And then he went on in that same video and said, and even if Ernie Gygax has come back, on an interview or whatever, and apologized for anything that he said or anything that he did, the apology would not be enough. And that's when I believe I said to you, at the time, right after watching that video, I had stated that, there are certain individuals, usually they operate on Twitter because they feel that their side of the argument is never checked on Twitter, and once you apologize to them, they smell blood in the water, and they just come at you even harder. And there's no benefit whatsoever to ever apologizing to them, and they won't accept it anyway. And so he then continued on, and then at that point, that is when, at least to my knowledge, that's when he first mentioned Mystic Days, which we both had on just a couple of days ago, talking about their interaction here. And from what I understand, Mystic Days, I mean, they said it themselves too. They also reached out to this individual. So to your recollection, what did they reach out to him with?
Oh, they reached out with an offer to fly him from his home state to DaveCon, put him up in a hotel, and let him experience DaveCon. And I did not prompt them. I did not ask them to do that. I did not do anything. They defended DaveCon on their own with their own money. And because that's the kind of experience they had at DaveCon. That this individual was sadly mistaken by the how do you want to say it? The experience? I mean, he was sadly experienced. You know, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He immediately, you know, he put those labels on the convention and myself and individuals at the convention, and that's not the case whatsoever. I mean, and let's backtrack just a little bit here. Before this I even contemplated getting a lawyer. I had reached out numerous times to this individual to say, hey, let's talk. You want to talk about DaveCon? Let's talk. In private, I sent these messages to him. He did not respond back at any time in those private messages. He decided that having everything in a public forum was the best way to do it, and he did not want to speak to me in any other way besides a negative form. And I was trying to be a gentleman and a scholar and you know, and be, you know, above the fray, as they would say, and he refused. So, I mean, we have what we have here with the C&D, with DaveCon hiring a lawyer and the C&D going out. Right.
So whether he received the COD, you know, the cease and desist order or not already, I've already seen on the internet, it appears that he has responded by taking like the last 6 months worth of his videos and hiding them behind private and so on. So, and same thing with some of his tweets and, you know, and elsewhere. And I know that they haven't been deleted. They've been hidden because when you try to click on them, they just say this video is now private. So they still exist out there. And so what is the next step of the cease and desist, you know, in light of that? Like, or what's your next step with him now?
Well, the next step is up to this individual. He has only a limited amount of time to call the lawyer that's on the C&D and talk to him. I've given instructions to the lawyer of what I expect, and these are very reasonable terms, and completely reasonable. And if this individual does not agree to the terms, then I've told my lawyer that next week or whenever this term ends, that we are going to start moving forward. Okay. And we are not playing games here. This is torturous interference. I have sworn statements, and I've got everything I need on my end, including videos and screenshots and other things to keep moving forward on my end.
Okay, and you know, the one thing that, one of the main reasons why, you know, I picked up on this story is that you know, we've seen now over the last couple of months the attempts of this kind of thing taking place from this individual and from others, but they have been very few in number, thankfully. But reaching out to conventions and telling conventions to, you know, uninvite individuals. I mean, it occurred with Gamehole and a different individual than this current one involved with you. But, you know, it involved Gamehole. Now, again, it's with DaveCon. And if if there isn't pushback, and that's why, I'm so appreciative of the fact that you're willing to actually push back and say, no, we don't have to tolerate these, it's not just frivolous name calling without any context placed to it or anything like that. I mean, that's bad enough, but that's that's just immature, and you could normally just wave that away. But when their intent is to harm your business or your convention or to harm your reputation, and to constantly spread that without fear of challenge or consequence, then that's why it's so important. I think that you've actually come forward and you put your name on it, you put DaveCon on it, and you're saying, no, I'm going to, take that step, and file a cease and desist. And hopefully he has some sense to, to just say, hey, you know what, I did, I was wrong for doing this or attempting this. I mean, I wouldn't anticipate that, but, hopefully there is some kind of a resolution where it sends the clear message that, whether it's the OSR or just the hobby in general or small conventions in general, that, we're not going to tolerate this kind of behavior, and we're not going to allow it to go unchallenged, where you can just call me, or someone else, any name in the book. I mean, he utilizes, and others have utilized some of the worst depictions, whether it be racist or bigot or Nazi or, or fascist or any of, I mean, these are the very common things that they will defame and slander or libel individuals with or organizations with, and without any evidence, without any consequence for just lodging these allegations. And they think that they can just walk away from it with a chuckle. Oh, I got my clicks. That was another thing that he was mentioning on his channel. Hey, I got 900 views and 200 comments, and that's what he's in for, and considering he's monetized, he's making money off of attacking you, and attacking your convention in an attempt to prevent you from having a successful convention. So I really do appreciate the fact that you're willing to push back on it. And hopefully it shows as an example of what others should potentially be doing, is to, at the very least, push back and say, I'm not going to accept this.
Oh, well, I tried, and most individuals will be reasonable, at least talk a little bit, but this positioning by this individual was just, what do I want to say it? I'm at a loss for the word right now, but it was unpalatable for most people. When you start using terminologies like he was using, it was, very, I was fit to be tied. Let's just put it that way. So, and here's the thing too, is that this individual was not an original content person. Mm-hmm. He would steal videos from Tom at Tabletop, Eric Tenkar, yourself, and other individuals, splice them in to his diatribes, and selectively edit this stuff. It would not be in full context. And individuals that believed his rhetoric or his stuff were only getting partial truths, half truths, or not even truths at all. It was a selective editing, and his selective editing is was not. Well, how do I want to say this? Was not truthful, and is a crying shame. I mean, we have lost in our society, newsmen and newswomen, or people that actually tell the truth, sort of like Merton R. Murrow and Walter Cronkite and those guys. I mean, that would just read you the news, and you made your decision off of that.
Right.
And it's very telling. It's very sad for our society to see this kind of thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, yeah, it's sad for the society. It's sad for the hobby. I've been recently seeing some things where they're talking about the comic book hobby and how this kind of action literally destroyed comic books. To the point that people felt that the only way is to publish outside of whether it be Marvel or DC or any of the other bigger publishers of comic books. And we're very much seeing the attempt at the same thing, and it is mostly directed against the OSR, because the OSR is so fragmented itself, so spread out in so many different things, that it's harder to pin it down to just a few to influence. There's too many to influence with that, but it doesn't stop them from trying and from tarnishing. Like I said, the small conventions are particularly vulnerable to this kind of thing. All right, because you are small and you're trying to break out. You're trying to become a bigger and more mainstreamed and so on, while still protecting your space from politics. I mean, most people just want a game. That's what the OSR really stands for, is just individuals who want to just sit down and enjoy playing games. And that's not where individuals like this are really coming from. They're there pushing an agenda in order to come into the space and alter it to match what they want.
Yes, they want it to match their perceived reality. Yeah. And they ignore history. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I don't know about you or anybody else, but I'm a big reader of history. I go and I read a lot of sci-fi. I got a stack of books probably about 4.5 feet tall next to my bed right now of books I've read in the last year. But I've read consistently every night, and I read history, and I don't read some fantasy of a society that they want or they can have currently. I mean, how do I want to say this? It's reality does not they want a reality that is unachievable in such a short time. They would if they could have whatever they wanted, they would use a wish spell and snap their fingers, and they would try to change everything.
Right.
And and it's just not going to happen. It's just their reality is rooted in ideas that are unachievable in such a short period of time. Right. Change is glacial. I think I read that somewhere. I don't know who said that. It's a quote from somebody. I don't remember where, but change is glacial. It takes years and years and years to get from one point to another. It isn't overnight. So, and I think that's what they want. They want gaming and the OSR and quote unquote us old fossils that play these games, from the 70s and 80s to just go away, because we are just that. We're fossils. We don't know what we're doing yet. They don't want to game with us either. They come to my game and they sit down and they're befuddled by how do I say this? The brutality of the game.
Right.
I don't hold back. It's when I'm in my game, it's a wilderness encounter. You're a first level player. If you and I go around the table, and one of my things in playing the game is I point right at the table and say, roll me a percentage die. And that percentage die will come up, and if it rolls fire giant and you're facing a fire giant, guess what? And you're a first level character, you know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's if you want to venture out in the world, the world is not going to be exactly as you think it's going to be. You know what I mean?
It's going to balance itself to match your level.
Right.
I was actually watching a video this morning on that very topic as well, and it's a it's a mindset that I think they bring to the metagame in saying, well, not only should the game modify itself to what I want for my character, but your table is supposed to modify itself to what I am as a player coming to the table. These safety tool demands and this and that, and trying to restrict what kind of content you could do at your table, and I think really it comes down to that. It's about exerting a power that they don't legitimately possess, and force people to play or to run their tables and to play the games the way that they wanted to, and I think that's the real purpose behind them, is not so much to participate in the hobby, but just to change the way that we participate in the hobby.
Well, and I got a argument with a individual, I don't know, some time ago about sex in the game. And you know what? I don't bring sex into my game.
Yeah.
You know what? We don't bring up sexual scenarios. We don't bring up any kind of that nonsense. Unless a player brings it up, and then I try to squash it as fast as I possibly can.
Right.
It comes up and I'll squash it right away, because guess what? It's not an integral part of first edition Dungeons and Dragons. If you look through the books or whatever, it's like, do you see any of that?
Yeah.
Did you read anything where Gary Gygax has said that sex is an integral part of the game? There's nothing in there. I mean, I've read the book twice, so I mean, right. No,
it's like, player characters don't crap in the woods either. I mean, there's so many real life functions that we don't do in the game.
There's a whole lot more to worry about in the game than one sex or who they're cavorting with or whatever, because this never comes up. You know what I mean? If somebody says, I'm going to the bar and I'm going to try to pick up on women, you know what I do? Or whatever, if they say that, I just go, okay, I put my hand out. I say, I don't need this part of the game. You're at the bar to find information. So, I try to relay some information, stuff like that. This new generation tries to bring all of this into the game,
right?
And it doesn't need it. It's just more flotsam. It's garbage that's inside the game that you don't need. You're not in combat. You're not trying to solve a mystery. You're not trying to solve a puzzle. You're not. It's not there. You know what I'm saying? And then what they do is, because the OSR doesn't kowtow to their wills and wants, it's the immediate attack, like they did on DaveCon and myself. It was like, well, I don't have to do that in my game. I don't want to do that in my game. It's not relevant to my game, and I'm not going to change it just for you. Yeah. This one person. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And that's one of the comments that Ernie Gygax made when he said, and he was attacked for it. They took it completely out of context and they attacked him for it. He said, well, when I played in the 80s, I mean, nobody cared. Nobody even thought about gender identity or any of that. He says, that's basically all nonsense talk. It has nothing to do with what we did. I mean, it's, unfortunately, too many of us probably didn't record that interview, because they've since expunged that interview from any place. It's very, very hard to find. And the reason why it's so hard to find is because he didn't truly say anything that was, very, very offensive. It was always couched in the idea of, this is how I saw things as a teenager, as a young adult playing in the 70s and 80s, and this is what it was for us. And because that is slightly different from this perceived, modern gamism, like you're mentioning, is that's why it was attacked.
Let's say this right now. History is history. You're supposed to learn from history. Mm-hmm. Dungeons and Dragons is sort of a historical game mixed with fantasy. If you're putting the two together, and things like slavery, what is it? The slave pits of the slave pits of the slave lords and stuff like that. That's history. What Gary Gygax and those writers back then did was bring up these facts of history. And and part of that was they went to libraries and they were reading stuff about the Roman Empire, the Normans, the Gaelics and all this stuff. And it was a quite common practice back then, up until slavery. And from what I'm understanding from modern reading I'm reading right now, is that slavery is still something that happens on this planet. Mm-hmm. And yes, it's unconscionable. Yes, it's abhorrent. I do not believe in it should be anything to be happening to anybody. So let's just get that out of the way before anybody cuts up your video and thinks that I condone such a thing. Matter of fact, I don't condone name calling whatsoever or anything like that. And anybody who wants to sit at my table is able to sit at my table. So let's just put that out there right now.
Yeah.
So, and that's the same with DaveCon. I don't care who you are. Walk in the door, pay your fee, leave your sexual orientation nonsense, leave your politics, leave that at the door. You're here to game.
Yep.
Game. Be nice to each other. Game. Have a good time. That's what DaveCon's about. Meet the icons, or meet the guys that started the hobby. Like David Wesley and stuff. These guys are the start of the game. They're the ones that were there at the very beginning.
Right.
So, and that's what you're there for. You're there for the experience. You're there to learn from these gentlemen, and ladies. So you're there to learn. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's just, I find individuals like the one that attacked DaveCon, like I said, unwilling to study history, unwilling to learn that history is meant to teach you a lesson, and you're supposed to learn from that lesson. I mean, what's the phrase again? history is doomed to repeat itself. Well, it isn't if you actually study it. You read back and you study it and you go, well, we're not going to make that mistake again. You know what I'm saying? So that's my philosophy on this. You know, that's why I read history. I read and I actually learn from what I'm reading. You know what I'm saying? So, you know. Other than that, what else do we want to discuss today while we're on the show?
Well, I think that's pretty much covers it. I mean, we wanted to have a discussion about, you know, the events that led up to the cease and desist and the, you know, the rationale and reasoning behind the cease and desist and you know, looking forward and trying to just, you know, move forward and hopefully the individual learns from his mistake. And, you know, like I said, I don't expect it like that he would apologize.
I don't expect any apology.
Yeah, hopefully it does send a message that you know, people on the end of that kind of an attack don't have to sit back and just take it. You know, that there is you know, I think that there's somewhat of a trend now of people are pushing back and they are saying, you know, I don't have to accept abuse coming from you just because I have a different way of thinking about something, and I'm certainly not going to allow my business you know, or my reputation to be tarnished just because we have a disagreement, you know, or a different way of looking at something. So I think it's really, really important to make sure that, you know, everyone understands that there are consequences for lodging allegations that are unfounded.
And here's another thing: is that I was willing to go through civil discourse and talk about this with this individual.
Yeah, that's
when they are not willing to do anything of civil discourse. Then where are my options lie? Where do I get my where do I get my recompense? You know what I'm saying? So where can I turn?
Yeah, no, I think you did I think that you did a service to all of the others that were, you know, attacked by this individual and attacked by other individuals as well. You know, that service is to at least send a message that you cannot defame and slander and libel with impunity. That there will be those that do push back and you know, go through the initial efforts of doing a cease and desist, and then, you know, looking to see that hopefully it doesn't have to go beyond that, but the willingness is there to push beyond that if they don't want to, you know, alter from making those kinds of attacks without warrant and without proof. I don't think either of us are saying that if there is genuine wrongdoing, that shouldn't be pointed out and attacked or whatever, addressed. But what we're saying, I think, is that this guilt by association, as you pointed out, is taking things out of context, cherry picking statements and putting them together to create a false narrative is something that shouldn't be tolerated anymore. So I really appreciate you coming on and talking about that and talking a little bit about what steps you took and trying to reconcile this, like you said, civilly, and there was just no place else left to go. So, that's the way it is.
I grew up in an age where I did debate club and stuff like that back in high school and stuff, and I learned back then civil discourse will does a whole lot more for society than this vile hate speech that you see out of people on the left and the right. Yeah. Sure, it gets you more attention, but it can get you in more trouble.
Yeah.
You know, it's, you know, look at the guy who got sued for Sandy Hook for his statements.
Yes.
The guy, you know, and then you got people on the other side of the aisle, like CNN, who got sued for making statements about the kid that was in Washington, D.C.
Yeah,
and they
the
lost
Covington case. Yes.
Right. Both sides.
Yeah.
You know, both sides now have went into civil litigation because of their opening their mouths before they're thinking about it, or they will not. They did not get into a how should we say a civil discussion and able to civilly talk to somebody. And if you're not willing to do that, you deserve exactly what you get.
Yep. There's consequences for not being adult and, you know, sitting down and trying to find either common ground or at least, you know, hearing each other out and then walking away and saying, hey, you know, good luck with you over there. I'm going to stay over here, and no one forcing them to associate with anyone that they don't want to.
Right, and each of those cases was they refused to see the evidence.
Yeah,
you know what? They refused. They put blinders on. They refused to see the evidence, and when the evidence proves them false, they ran and hid, or they blustered or doubled down, which was exactly the wrong thing to do. Mm-hmm. And when civil discourse could have made everything go away. It could have just went underneath the rug, and nobody would have ever been, you know, it would have, you know, after a couple of years, it would have just been, that's it. That was the end of it. So, you know, I would much rather have civil discourse with somebody than have to do what I had to do.
Right.
You know, and you know, if people don't believe that, well, then they're dead wrong, because it's a lot easier to discuss something and come to a mutual common ground or an agreement, and then be civilized to each other, and that doesn't prompt what we have here. So,
okay, all right. Well, let's leave it at that. That was a great point to leave it off on, and you know, once again, Victor, thank you. So, on the banner that I'm going to put for this video, when I put it up there, it is an advertisement for DaveCon. But if you want to just throw out there DaveCon's dates.
DaveCon is April 13th through the 16th in Minneapolis. Actually, it's in a suburb called Bloomington, Minnesota, at the Sheraton Hotel. And right now, if you look around, I think it's on the DaveCon Facebook page. I know it's on there, and it might be on the Twitter page. You can actually win tickets to come to DaveCon. You just got to take a quick little survey, and I think it's 4 questions or 5 questions, and you could possibly win tickets to DaveCon. So,
cool.
Yep.
All right. Well, again, thanks a lot, Victor, for coming on, and thanks to everybody who's going to end up watching this, and your comments and questions. They are welcome, and I'll handle those, you know, afterwards, obviously. And if there's anything that's, you know, anything that's really important out there, I'm sure either Victor or myself, we will get back to you. If you have questions specifically about DaveCon, then obviously Victor is the person to go to. And anything about just overall, you know, the discussion about the OSR and what we're doing, then either of us can handle those as well. So
right. And I'm not gonna say anything more about this C&D, basically. I mean, I made a few statements, and now it's up to that individual to contact my lawyer and do whatever he wants to do. I mean, now the ball is back in his court. He has the opportunity to mitigate the situation, so.
Very reasonable. And, thank you again.
Yep.
Anytime. All right, everyone, so have a great afternoon. Victor, enjoy the rest of I guess it's your lunch break or whatever. And, I have to get ready to go off to work myself. So everyone have a great afternoon. And, hopefully you learn something from this video.
All right. Have a good day, everybody.
All right. Take care.